time, weren't you? But Robina's on the line now. Hello, Robina.
Hello, how are you going?
Welcome to Melbourne again.
Thank you, it's lovely to be there.
Well, you were with us for some time, weren't you? Resident...
Yes.
Yes.
Wasn't there an E on the end of Beard originally?
No, never. My brother added one when he found out that numerologically it didn't work.
Oh.
And I said it was silly because we didn't have one in the first place, so we had to be stuck with the numbers we had.
We'll talk about your brother Chris later.
You've worked with luminaries such as Graham Kennedy, Bobby Lim, Gordon Chater and Benny Hill.
Yeah.
The latter, what was the days there? Were they happy with Benny?
Oh, he was great, yes. He came out to do a couple of television specials, and I think I did one of the best television sketches I've ever done, comedy sketches. One of those lovely layabout sketches where he was the gormless one, and the
Yes.
guy had all the good girls, and I was his gormless partner. That seemed to be my lot in life.
Robina, I don't know whether you mind me mentioning that Palmolive liquid detergent that you did, but, you became a cult following, if you like, with the Madge you're soaking in it. Does that worry you?
No. Look, I did that for 19 years. How could you avoid becoming a household word? Because I was associated with a household product. It was a great product. I loved the person that I was portraying. I loved being Madge. Thought she was a mad lady and had a lot of spunk and told the customers what she thought. And I think over the years she got better and better. In the beginning, she had to speak with a very broad Australian accent, and she got a bit more sophisticated as the years went by. And I thoroughly enjoyed every minute I was Madge.
Currently, Robina, we're talking to you in Brisbane at the end of a very successful season of 42nd Street.
That's right.
And now, what is your role, behind the scenes?
My official title is Resident Director.
Yes.
Which means I look after the show and make sure it stays in shape and keeps up to its sparkling best.
That's a huge responsibility, Robina.
Well, it's a big show, and but the best thing about it is it's a really terrific show. So, and that's what I've been doing most of my life. I've been involved in the musical theatre. It's what my passion and my absolute love. So I'm involved in a job I absolutely adore, but it does take a fair bit of work.
And of course, 42nd Street with Tony Lamond is coming to Melbourne next April. You'll be aware there have been record box office sales already.
I know, we're really so excited about coming to Melbourne. It's just great. We went to Adelaide and Auckland first.
Yeah.
There we are appearing in April in Melbourne, and we feel like that's the next big challenge for the 42nd Street Company.
Well, how do you enjoy being behind the scenes? Because you're so much the performer, you're such an upfront lady normally.
Oh, look, it's very difficult, but I rationalise in as much as lots of people, there are a few performers, and the people who are able to do the other side of it is perhaps less numerous, and if you can do it, then you should do it. Especially now that I'm getting on, I feel that my responsibilities in that direction are in the production direction side, and it's fascinating and very rewarding.
Robina Beard, our special guest this hour on Remember When. Now, you and your brother Chris, he went on to do great things with Laugh-In and a lot of American shows that we got out here. Do you come from a show business family, Robina?
Well, look, as I'm getting older, I'm finding out more and more that I do come from a show business family. My antecedents on my mother and father's side are both involved in the theatre as producers and writers, but as a child, as children, we didn't know this. Our parents were very interested in the theatre, but they weren't of it. And it just seemed to be that I was always interested in being a dancer, and ever since I can remember, I've said, well, what do you want to do? I want to go on the stage. And when I was about 15 years old, I got onto the stage for the first time, and I've been there ever since, or been involved with it. And my brother, when he was about 18, he decided that that's the way he would go. And so the two of us have branched out from then. He successful in a very big arena in the American television industry, but I feel that I've made my mark in the Australian musical theatre industry, which is the one I love. In a sort of grandfather, grandmother, great aunt, great uncle era of our lives, they were involved in the theatre, and so obviously it's fed through to us both.
Did you and your brother originally come out about 30 years ago when Digby Wolfe started Review 60, Robina?
No, we came to Australia in 49, so we both went to school in Australia.
Why do I associate you or Chris with Review 60?
Was co-writer with Alan Kitson on Review 61, 62.
I always thought Digby was one of the best compares we've ever had on Australian television.
He was very good, very smooth and very good, yeah. Excellent. I think he's not working anymore, but he's in California somewhere. And I don't know that he and Chris ever crossed paths, but they did get a very good thing going with those 2 years of reviews. They were excellent shows.
Do you have any friends in the business that, I know you're working with them all the time, but any from the old days that you keep in contact with, Robina?
Well, yes, just always. That's the wonder of the entertainment industry, is that you meet so many people, and because we're sort of outgoing, open people, you've got 100 friends. You may never see them for years and years and years, but when you meet them again, they're still just the same as you were. I'm working with Tony and Nancy, who are very old friends, especially Tony, because, you know, we did IMT together for years and years and years, and she's just the best. She's just such a stunning performer. You can't believe that she's still up there singing and belting it out as good as anybody. And she opens her mouth to sing on 42nd Street. The whole audience just melts. That wonderful warm voice that she's always had is still as strong and beautiful as ever.
What's been the high point of your career, Robina Beard?
Oh gosh, what a difficult thing to say.
Yeah, it's not easy when we look at your outstanding credits.
I think the best thing I ever did was I started to do some children's theatre, and I was a sort of what's the word? You invent it. A choreographer, director.
Was this for Gotcha, was it?
Two or three children's shows. There were Peter Pan, West of Oz, Robin Hood, and especially Peter Pan. I think I could honestly say this is the best moment I ever had in my life, because it was my production, and I did the staging and the choreography and the directing, and Peter Pan was asking an audience of 2,000 children to whisper so that they could make Tinkerbell live again. You know how you say you don't believe in fairies, the fairy dies?
Yes.
And Tinkerbell was lying on the stage dying, and Peter Pan asked this audience of children to whisper that they believed in fairies. And everybody told me when I put this show together that children in the 80s and 90s wouldn't do that. And 2,500 children whispered, "I believe in fairies," and I just broke into pieces because that was the best thing that I can ever remember happening to me in the theatre.
We're talking about 42nd Street. I know you've been stage director of that show, and you've had executive roles in other big productions. Do you think it's hard these days for a lady, behind the scenes to gain as much respect as a man when she has to perhaps give orders and boss people around?
Well, you don't give orders and you don't boss people around, not in the theatre, because there's no point in it. You deal with the people as adults, and you know that in the theatre, performers are always trying to do their best. What they really want to do is please the audience, and the only way they're going to get out of line is because they're trying too hard, or they've lost just a bit of contact with what they were told in the beginning. So all you have to do is remind them and say, how about this, let's go back to where we started and remember this, this and this, and they say, oh yes, gosh, am I doing that? It's never a question of bossing people around, because basically all they want to do is please the audience, and that's my job to make sure that we keep in the same sort of parameters that we were given in the first place, because that's what the director wanted, and that's what was successful in the beginning.
Well, you've been pleasing audiences for many, many years, and although you say that you sort of mature, I think there is a room for people like yourself to bring out the knowledge that you have gained and give to others, as you are now.
Well, listen, what I'm doing this year and next year is I'm doing a part-time master's degree in creative arts in the musical theatre, because I think the musical theatre is the least appreciated by the academics and the hierarchy in the theatre arts. And I want the musical theatre to have as important a role in the cultural system of Australia as anything else, because I think that musical theatre is a very big part of Australians' theatrical life. So in a couple of years I'll be, hopefully, have my master's degree in creative arts. I'll be jumping up and down about the musical theatre art in Australia.
Robina Beard, our special guest this hour. Here's Philip Brady.
Robina, in 1984, I saw 42nd Street on Broadway, starring Jerry Orbach.
Yeah.
And it might have just been an off night, but I thought it was very mediocre. And yet, as you know, the show has taken Australia by storm.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if perhaps it was at the end of its run there, or the cast were a bit tired that night. But I left the theatre thinking, gee, I wish I'd gone to see Mickey Rooney in Sugar Babies instead.
Yeah. See, the thing about New York is a Broadway show in New York, especially like something like 42nd Street, ran for 8 years. Now, some of the people in 42nd Street were in it for 8 years, and it's very, very, very difficult to stay fresh in a show for 8 years. Fortunately in Australia, well, fortunately or unfortunately for the producers, nothing will run for 8 years, so we don't get that really dread sort of boredom to set in. But it is important to try and keep finding new ways to keep things fresh, because every time an audience goes into the theatre, it's the first time for them. It's the first time they've paid a lot of money for their seats. It's the first time they've seen that particular scenery. They've heard the overture. And my job is to keep reminding and telling the performers that every time they go on the stage, it's the first time for the audience, and so therefore it should nearly be, or as close as possible, be the first time for them too.
Oh, that's a good policy too, and particularly for younger performers.
Yes.
Thank you, Robina, for spending some minutes with us. It's been lovely and brought back, I'm sure, a lot of memories to people listening.
Great.
Robina Beard.
And give our best to Chris. And if he's looking for two young, good-looking Australian compares for his next television project in America, Robina, you've got our phone number.
Australia's very big in America. I'll be sure to tell him that.
Thanks a lot, Robina.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.